Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle. I'm joined today by Congressional reporter Samantha-Jo Roth. SJ, we've seen the first real big fight of the Republican House majority as we've hit the official debt limit. Now there's going to be a real battle between the White House and House Republicans. What can you tell us about where we currently stand?
Well, I think we currently stand with a lot of rhetoric, a lot of people, throwing out specific things, but not actually naming exactly what they want to do. So, House Republicans are very adamant. They're saying, we're not going to just jack up this debt limit without any compromises. So we need to be able to come to the table with the Biden administration, the Democrats, and we need to have this discussion. But then you also have, the hardline conservatives in the House who are talking about different, debt prioritization.
Right.
And such like that. You're also hearing a lot of Republicans saying that's a little ridiculous. So there's a lot of rhetoric going on. This is certainly going to be a huge political fight, and we're going to have to watch how it all plays out, particularly, bracing until about June for this to happen.
I mean, because it's a somewhat real deadline. I mean, because things do have to get paid. Republicans don't have a very big majority in the House, and they don't control the Senate or the White House at all. So what kind of leverage do they really have?
Well, they actually do have a lot more leverage than you would think. In this lower chamber, I was speaking with some, Senate Republican leadership sources, and, a lot of them have said to me, listen, we have a way that we would like to deal with this, but we may not get our way because, there are some hardliners in the lower chamber that are not going to agree to some of the solutions that we want to propose. I mean, one aide had said, maybe we could do something similar where we, put this on the floor and we have, amendments where Democrats, we make Democrats look bad for, all of the things that they've added to the debt. And then we move forward and we just raise the debt limit. Unfortunately, it does not seem like House conservatives in the lower chamber are going to agree to something like that. That is purely visual, and it's not necessarily something that actually requires change. So I think you're going to see this back and forth between the Senate Republicans, the House Republicans, and they're going to have to come to some kind of conclusion. And then the big question is, what is that White House going to do? Right. They have really, they don't have a lot of reason to negotiate at this point.
And I mean, they could cut some kind of deal and extend the debt limit with Democratic votes in addition to whatever Republicans want to vote for the extension. But it's a little tricky with some of the rules that they agreed to in terms of keeping Kevin McCarthy in the Speaker's chair.
Yeah, it definitely creates some drama. I think a lot of people were looking at that House Speaker race and realizing, this is just the tip of the iceberg. It took that just to get this person elected Speaker.
Right.
And when it comes to some of these more intense policy debates, like the debt ceiling, like government funding, we have a farm bill coming up. We have, FAA authorizations, a lot of really important things, and a lot of agreements and negotiation are going to happen in both chambers.
So one thing conservatives, the most conservative faction in the House, did get that they like is some committee assignments. The Republicans have rolled out who's getting to serve on what committee, who's getting to chair what committee. What are some of the things that stood out to you?
Well, we're definitely seeing a lot of people on the Oversight Committee, Lauren Boebert, MTG. This is going to be a committee that really dives deep into some of the investigations of, Biden's classified documents.
Right.
We also saw MTG getting on the Homeland Security Committee, which is a key committee that's going to be obviously investigating national security interests as well as the border. So a lot of these hardline conservatives are getting top spots on these really influential committees. And, it does seem that they weren't necessarily punished. And unfortunately for Kevin McCarthy, his hands are kind of tied because he does need, those conservatives to be on his side when they're trying to pass legislation. So, he was not able to punish those who did not support him.
Right, and he did, however, reward some who ultimately supported him. And in the previous Congress, under the Democrats, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosar didn't have committee assignments at all.
Right, right. So that was a big change this year. Paul Gosar is now back on the Natural Resources Committee. I believe he's on the oversight as well. So this is definitely a change from last time that they actually do have committee assignments after they had been saying some controversial things and were punished last session of Congress.
So Kermit the Frog says it's not easy being green, but Kevin McCarthy's made it a little easier this year. So the debt ceiling is not the only fiscal policy flap going on. It's maybe the most important, but Republicans have gotten some scrutiny for a proposal to replace the income tax with what?
With a shopping, what do you call it?
National
sales tax, 30%. They're saying they're going to switch that out. Some people say, hey, this is a great idea. The richest of the rich are not getting punished for their success, and the only way that you are going to be taxed are if you're actually buying stuff.
Right.
But you're also seeing a lot of Democrats coming out and saying, this is going to impact everyday people, going to the grocery store, doing all of the things that they need to do. So, Kevin McCarthy promised a vote on this bill that would do just that. We don't expect it to pass, but it certainly is something that some Republicans are saying could really hurt them, potentially in primaries, could be brought up. So, it's definitely a difficult situation for this legislation.
I mean, because there are definitely some tax proposals that are popular in conservative circles. Flat tax, national retail sales tax, the fair tax. These things come up time and again. And some of the supporters of these things do play a pretty big role in Republican primaries.
Right, and this is something that we've heard about for a really long time. It's been coming up in conservative radio circles since the early 90s. But nothing like this has ever actually gotten a vote on the floor in either chamber. So this is kind of an interesting first test to see who is on the record as supporting this, who is off the record, on the record as not supporting this. So it'll be very interesting to watch and see how maybe this vote could have some blowback for some of the supporters of this bill.
And they probably don't have the votes to repeal the 16th Amendment, right?
I doubt it. Yeah. So it could be just purely visual here.
A taxing situation. Thank you, SJ.
Thank you.
You can read Samantha-Jo and the rest of our political team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.